So of course, our interest started out for this project with, cow shoals and what are the conditions there. But where do you find these conditions that are right for trout on the rest of the trout? Or were there any other areas, or was it just cow shoals?
So, Christy, I think this map really gives you a good idea. This map, the circles on this map represent everywhere that we found reds during the 2020 spawning season. So from the end of September to probably the end of January. Remember, we were out there every 2 weeks, and we've taken every place that Derek found a red and laid it on this map. So you can see, here's Cow Shoals, okay? But you can see that everywhere from Kennedy to below the Pangburn axis, brown trout found good conditions to spawn in. So if we zoom in for just a second at what that upper reach looks like, here's Kennedy, here's the Barnett axis, and you can see that all along here above Beach Island, at the top end of Cow Shoals where the island is, this is near the Cow Shoals walk-in, but John's Pocket and Winkley Shoals, there's lots of spawning happening everywhere in the tailwater. If we zoom in just one more time, for those of you that are really familiar with Cow Shoals, you know where the island is that marks the top of it. And if you've walked this stretch, you know how hard it is to walk there, because the gravel isn't gravel, it's cobble, it's big. And the trout know they can't move that around. So they spawn up here by the island where there's gravel the right size, and then they don't spawn until they get back down closer to the walk-in access where the gravel gets smaller and they can effectively make a red. But the take-home message here is that there's nothing particularly unique about Cow Shoals. Brown trout spawn throughout the tailwater.
That's some really good information. I mean, for us, and that's going to be really important moving forward, is Cow Shoals this unique area that we need to protect with more specific regulations, or are we needing to protect other things, which that's the kind of stuff that we wanted to get out of this project in the first place. So Steve, another one of your key things about what we've learned is that the brown trout aren't moving around very much in the trout water. So tell us, how did you guys look and find out that brown trout just aren't moving that much during the spawn?
Okay, so the folks from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and the folks from the trout program went out seasonally, so spring, winter, summer, and fall, and we would electrofish up and down the tailwater. And when we caught a trout, we would weigh it and we would measure it. Now, I'm only talking about brown trout, right? We would weigh it, we would measure it, and then we would put a chip in it. You can see what this chip looks like. If you got a new puppy, you might take that puppy to the vet and get him chipped so that if the puppy ran away, the vet could wave a wand and figure out whose puppy that was. Well, we put the same kind of thing into brown trout when we sample them, okay? And what that allows us to do is wave a wand over a trout and get the information like where that trout was originally tagged with this chip. So we go up seasonally and we find fish in the spring, and then we put this chip in them and we go back the next summer. Well, if we recapture that fish and we wave our wand over it, it will tell us that that fish has already been captured once, and it will actually give us the location where the fish was originally tagged and the location of the fish where it was recaptured. And what we found is that it did not make any difference whether the time between capture and recapture was 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. The fish were always recaptured within about a half a mile of where they had been tagged. So fish are staying in their neighborhood. Now, why would a fish do that? Well, if you think about it, what the fish needs to live, grow, and reproduce, it's finding right there in its neighborhood. It's finding the right conditions to spawn without having to swim from Rainbow Island all the way up to Beach Island or Cow Shoals to find the right place to spawn. Why would it waste energy swimming all that way if the right conditions are already in its neighborhood? So we can see these fish are not making long movements to spawn, and you don't get the entire tailwater congregating on Cow Shoals during the spawning season. They stay where they are because they have what they need in their neighborhood.
Well, it makes perfect sense if you think about it. So, so we're kind of at the end towards this project, but can you give folks an idea of like where are we going from here? What else are you guys studying as a result of this project and the information we've collected so far? What are the things that are going to help us at Game and Fish with our management?
Okay, so there's a couple of things we can do with the data that we collect and then recollect when we handle fish with these chips inside them. So we weigh and measure them when we first capture them, and we weigh and measure them when we recapture them, and the change in length over that time period can actually give us growth rates. So we can infer how fast brown trout are growing in the tailwater, and we're in the process of doing that right now.
All right. Well, so what else are we planning for this project? How much longer until we have the final results of this project where they might be made available to the public?
So Christy, what we plan to do right now is to wrap up this phase of our research in July of 2022. We'll have the answers to those last things that I said we were going to be looking at by July of 2022. Now, my understanding is there is some discussion within the agency about maybe paying attention to brown trout that are downstream of the typical management area. And we might be looking at how many trout are below the managed tailwater between that, the end of the managed tailwater and Circe, and maybe even how many there are and how they're moving around to see if they're finding their way back up to the managed area and then back out of the managed area during an annual cycle.
Yeah, we have had that discussion. We're definitely interested. When we lost your video feed, there you are. We're definitely interested. We've had some anglers approach us about what's going on with the trout fishery below the 30-mile boundary, as you said, downstream of that. So that's part of the management plan as well, is to try to start looking into what might be going on down there. So we would look forward to that type of research in the near future, hopefully.
Well, Christy, we were excited to be able to do this work and help put some evidence on the table so that your trout management actions were based on evidence. And if there's work that we can do in the future, we're always happy to lend a hand.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate working with you guys, and thank you for taking time today to present this information to anybody who's watching the video. And anybody who wants, feel free to contact myself or Dr. Lochmann for more answers.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.